Ben here, guys, with Swift English. So today we're gonna look at TOEFL reading sentence simplification questions. So sentence simplification might go by other names as well, depending on which tutor you're working with, or if you're reading some different blog sites related to TOEFL. They might refer to it as sentence highlight questions. That's what I usually like to call them. It's easier, for my students, my private students, test takers to remember this question type. Other people might refer to it as paraphrase questions because they are paraphrasing here. That's true. So as long as you recognize it, that's the thing. So, all right, let's begin. Okay, so the first step you want to apply when it comes to this particular question type is obviously read the highlighted sentence, okay? Do not read the answer choices. That will confuse you. And the question itself is pretty much always the same. So they're going to tell you, which of these options, which of these sentences best expresses. That's the key word, guys. Best, okay? Some of them could be very close, but one of them is better than the rest. The essential information, basically the important information in the highlighted sentence in the passage. Incorrect choices change the meaning in important ways. So they modify it, or leave out essential information. So maybe they're missing part of the important details as well. Okay, so let's take a look at this sentence. The dramatic expansion of, now one tip I have for my private students is to try to kind of break down these words into simple meaning for yourself. So when I read the dramatic expansion in my head, I'll tell myself the big growth of the railroad network. And railroad network is kind of obvious, right? In the 1850s, in this decade, in this time, however, but, right, strained the financing capacity of local governments and required a turn toward private investment. So they basically depended on support from, private money, private companies, which now when you run into a word like which, if you ever get one of these, it's referring to private investment, not financing capacity, not local governments, not other nouns. So always remember that which is referring to the noun right in the previous clause. Okay. Had never been absent from the picture. Now this is a tricky one. They actually applied an expression here. So which had never been absent from the picture has nothing to do with pictures or paintings or photos or anything like that. They're basically saying that private investment was really important here. Basically, it was essential. Okay. Now, step 2, you have to read the choices one by one, and I highly recommend reading all 4 of them for this one, guys. So even if the answer, let's say is A or something, or B, do not go to the next question. Check all 4 choices, all 4 options to really, be certain, because some of them are really close. Okay. So step 2, private investment in railroads began in the 1850s. All right. So right off the bat, I can kind of notice that there's incorrect information here. So this date actually helped me. This doesn't always happen in every single situation, but since we have a date here, it can be pretty useful. So they didn't actually say private investment began in the 1850s. They actually said the dramatic expansion of the railroad network, in the 1850s did this, okay? So they're kind of changing and manipulating the information, and a lot of the incorrect answer choices do that, so just be aware of it. So so if I know this is wrong, guys, the entire answer is wrong. You don't even really have to read the rest of this. It's pretty obvious at this point. If you have trouble understanding this, read the rest of it, but this already was incorrect, so the entire thing is incorrect. Choice B, railroads' relations with local governments, the relationship, right, became strained in the 1850s. Did they say that? Is this true? No, they said there was a dramatic expansion of the railroad network in the 1850s. See, guys, don't overcomplicate it. If they lie about one thing, if they're presenting some part of the answer as incorrect, then the entire thing's incorrect. So B is wrong. I don't even have to read this sentence. But if you're not sure, you could read the entire thing just to really be sure and obviously make your choice. So choice C, when we read this one, it looks good at first. So let's read it. Local government's limited capacity to finance railroad expansion was a long-standing problem that railroads solved in the 1850s by turning toward private investment. So in meaning, it sounds really close to this. It almost sounds like the actual paraphrase and the correct answer. But there's a problem with this one. So what is that problem? It does have like pretty much all the essential information as far as I can tell, but notice the words limited capacity. So this is, assuming that they always had like this limited budget to work with, but they never said there was like restrictions on their, financial capacity anywhere, okay? They said later on, right? It became strained. Okay, it wasn't like that in the beginning. So this is just a bizarre modification. So no, it wasn't limited always. The other issue is this adjective as well. To finance railroad expansion was a long-standing problem. Well, did they say it was a long-standing problem in the passage? No, they never mentioned that in the highlighted sentence at all. So again, they're kind of modifying the original information, okay? If you modify something using adjectives, adverbs, you are changing the meaning. So this is incorrect as well. So by process of elimination, we know D is the right answer option. But let's read it, just for our own understanding too. When local governments, couldn't adequately finance the railroad's dramatic expansion in the 1850s. Okay, what happened, right? This is a when sentence. Well, they did this. Private investment became increasingly important. So private investment, private companies, private money help these local governments out to fund the railroads. Okay, or finance them. Now let's look at another one. Okay, so we know the question's the same. So we want to come directly to the highlighted sentence here. So on January 9th, okay, on this date, urged on by Brazilian advisors, so they're kind of pressing Brazilian advisors to do something, right? So urged on by, or Brazilian advisors are urging someone, actually, who perceived a golden opportunity to make an orderly transition to independence. Okay, so they want some kind of independence, probably for a country, I'm assuming Brazil here, right, based on this context, without the intervention of the masses, so without support from Brazilian people, based on this. Pedro, okay, probably like a leader, right? If you read this, you would know who he was. So Pedro refused an order from the parliament to return to Portugal, okay? Saying famously, so this is what Pedro said, I remain. So I stay here. Okay. So now we need to pick the choice that pretty much matches this. It's just paraphrase. It has the essential points, right? The essential meaning, and it's not modifying the information. It's not missing any important details. So let's check this out. And it's not presenting incorrect information. So choice A on January 9th, 1822. So on this date, yeah, it's pretty much the same date. They didn't add the 1822 part, but that's okay. That's fine. Brazil achieved independence without any involvement by the masses when Pedro, despite the urging of his Brazilian advisors, defied a parliamentary order to return to Portugal. So the issue with this one is, be careful, guys, when it comes to certain conjunctions, transition words, specific kinds of devices. So despite is kind of like a word that's similar to in spite of, however, but, right? It doesn't make sense to apply this word here and say like, despite the urging of his Brazilian advisors. This is kind of contradictory to what was mentioned in the highlighted sentence, because he didn't do anything opposite to what his Brazilian advisors requested of him. So Pedro listened to them. He stayed in Brazil because his Brazilian advisors saw this golden opportunity for Brazilian independence. So if you have despite the urging here, that's a contradiction. So this is wrong. This is incorrect information. Almost sounds like the opposite too. Choice B, following the urging of Brazilian advisors, okay, fine up to now. On this date, okay, so far so good. The Portuguese parliament ordered Pedro to return, but hoping to avoid conflict with masses. Okay, again, but why a but? Why, this kind of conjunction here, this kind of word device here? They didn't say, he was hoping to avoid conflict with the masses anywhere there, and that word conflict's suspicious too. They actually talk about involvement or intervention from the masses when it came to the independence. So Pedro declared, I remain. So this but here just changes the meaning of this original statement. So B is wrong as well. So option C, the best opportunity, the best chance for Brazil to achieve independence without involving the masses came on this date. Okay. But Pedro saying I remain refused in order to return to Portugal. Okay, so again, why the but? We don't need to have like this but or however here. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And yeah, okay, so that leaves us with choice D. It is the correct answer, but let's take a look at it and really examine why that is. Seeing the possibility, like the chance, the opportunity of an orderly transition to independence. Yes, they did mention that in the highlighted sentence. Pedro's Brazilian advisors urged him, so they pressed him, right, to refuse to return to Portugal. Yeah, they mentioned that. And on January 9th, 1822, on this date, Pedro did refuse. So he listened to his advisors. He did exactly what they told him to do, declaring, I remain. I will stay here in Brazil and become the ruler of Brazil. Of course, they didn't say that, but if you read this passage, you would understand it better. Okay, so he eventually did become the king of Brazil for a moment in time. Okay, so let's take a look at one last one. So again, we know what the question's asking. We just want to come straight to the highlighted sentence itself and simplify the meaning for ourselves. So with researcher J.E. Moseman, some researcher. So with him, he has, well, who's he? Sometimes, guys, if you're not sure, if they're making a reference to someone, especially when they're using pronouns like he, she, they, sometimes it helps to know what was in the previous sentence. So this he clearly is referring to Paul S. Martin, who was an ecologist, has co-authored a work in which a computer model has showed that in around 300 years, given the right conditions, like the right factors, a small influx, like a small wave or group of hunters into eastern Beringia 12,000 years ago could have spread across North America in a wave and wiped out game animals to feed their burgeoning population. Okay, all right, got it. So we have, some two researchers. They had this work. They conducted this work that involved a computer model, right? And it showed that in this time, given the right factors, the right conditions, it was possible for a group of or a wave of hunters to basically walk into this region, Eastern Beringia, at this time. And this is close to Alaska, basically, or it is in Alaska. Could have spread across North America in a wave and wiped out game animals to feed their burgeoning population. So a kind of animal, even if you didn't know, it's not the end of the world, to feed. Now, burgeoning, if you didn't know, it's okay, just do your best, but it means like exploding population, a really growing population. Okay. So choice A computer model was designed to determine how long it could have taken for a small group of hunters to spread across North America. Okay, so what's the issue with this one? Is it the correct answer option? Well, the issue or the problem with this one is how long. So this computer model they came up with was designed, created to determine, to figure out how long it would take them to enter North America. But that's not the point here that was mentioned or conveyed in the highlighted sentence. They were basically explaining that this small influx of hunters, this small wave of hunters, could have entered North America and killed off, all the wildlife there, okay? So that's not the case. They didn't kill off the game animals here. They didn't mention that here, okay? But they did mention that here. So A is wrong. It's focusing on the wrong point and it's missing essential information. A computer model showed that it was possible for a small group of hunters, okay, so far so good, to spread across North America, okay, and kill off game animals in just 300 years. All right, so seems fine so far. It seems all right. I don't see any issues off the bat. Now let's check choices C and D. According to a computer model, people coming into North America 12,000 years ago had to be careful with like extreme language, guys. Like you must do this, right? Always, never, just extreme language. Had to kill game animals in order to feed their population. Well, they said it was possible for them to enter North America and kill off these animals. They didn't say they, had to do this to feed their population. This is an assumption that was added to the original text, okay? It was information that wasn't included in the original highlighted text. So that's kind of modifying the meaning of the highlighted sentence, so it's wrong. Now let's check D just to be safe. According to a computer model, about 12,000 years ago, conditions allowed a small group of hunters to enter and cross North America in about 300 years. Well, okay, but where's the bit about how they killed off the game animals, right? They didn't mention that. They're missing essential information here, important information. So based on that, our correct answer obviously is B. It included all the essential details, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.